An empty highway. Darkness. Just headlights. And silence. Then, footsteps. A stare. A shadow. Tonight, you'll hear 3 true stories where the road became a trap, and the trip, a final decision. If you ever drive at night, remember these stories before it's too late. I should give a quick bit of context before the story really starts. I go to a public university in California that's part of the UC system. Some campuses, like UCLA, Berkeley, and Santa Barbara, are much larger, while others, like mine, are relatively small. The bigger schools host what are basically massive tour days for incoming students, which are honestly just big excuses for wild campus-wide parties. For example, Berkeley has Cal Day, and Santa Barbara has Deltopia. Even though my campus is a 2.5-hour drive from Santa Barbara, it's common for students to head over to other schools during these events. I was never into the party scene, so I never went. But then I realized it was my senior year, and I'd never get the chance again. So when my friends asked if I wanted to come to Deltopia with them, I thought, why not? We left Friday afternoon before the main event. The car was packed. Hunter was driving, and along with him were Damon, Benjamin, and Armin. We're all over 6 feet tall, so the ride was cramped, but fun thanks to good music and conversation. Once we got to Isla Vista, it took almost an hour of circling to find parking. Deltopia is that crowded. Just as we were about to give up, Hunter managed to charm a sorority girl into letting us use her assigned spot, which we all found hilarious. Hunter's sister, who's a junior at UCSB, let us crash on her apartment floor, which during Deltopia is basically luxury. Her roommates were cool, so we ended up partying with them that night, even though the actual event wasn't until Saturday. One more detail, Hunter has a friend named Amir. I use that term loosely. Amir clings to social groups without actually being part of them. He's loud, needy, and always makes everything about himself. He's done some pretty messed up stuff to us before. So yeah, I've earned the right to talk about him. Apparently, Amir had told Hunter he'd be at Deltopia too, but we hadn't planned to meet up with him. No one brought him up on the drive down. So imagine our surprise when, after picking up alcohol, we see him just standing on the curb. Without saying much, he joined our group like he'd been there all along. Then he actually said, "Why are you guys surprised to see me?" We were all thrown off. As far as we knew, Hunter hadn't even told him where we were staying. Back at the apartment, Amir asked to use the bathroom. Hunter reluctantly agreed, but Amir ran ahead of us, and when Hunter's sister answered the door, Amir just told her, "I'm staying here," and walked in like he owned the place. She didn't know him and assumed he was one of us. When Hunter found out Amir had lied, he was furious. Long story short, Hunter told Amir to leave and that he wasn't welcome. Amir stood outside the door for 20 minutes trying to argue his way back in, but eventually gave up. We got pretty drunk afterward, and the whole Amir situation was all we talked about. That's when we realized Amir had been tracking us via Hunter's iPhone location sharing. Creepy. The next day was a blast. Deltopia lived up to the hype. We linked up with 5 other friends and went back to Hunter's sister's place. We filled them in about Amir, and Rylan, one of the new arrivals, checked his phone and saw Amir's location, basically right on top of us. As soon as we mentioned it, the location dot started moving fast, like he had been nearby in a car and drove off once he realized we knew. That should have been our red flag. But we just laughed it off. That night, after we crashed, I randomly woke up. Then I heard glass shattering from deeper in the apartment. I sat up, panicking. Everyone else was out cold. I grabbed an empty wine bottle for defense and crept toward the sound. The balcony's sliding glass door was shattered, a rock sitting on the floor surrounded by broken glass. I didn't need to guess. Amir did it. I was about to wake my friends when I noticed the closet door handle move. My heart sank. Was he actually inside? I almost opened it, but something stopped me. I woke Hunter instead and told him to help me. We went back to the living room, but the closet door was already wide open. Amir was gone, but inside the closet was a massive kitchen knife. Amir had been hiding there, holding that knife, likely waiting for me to open the door. He could have seriously hurt me, or worse. We woke everyone up and checked the whole apartment. Then we called the cops. They took a report, but said Deltopia always has incidents like this. Ryland couldn't even show them Amir's location anymore. Amir had stopped sharing it. We left the next day. Hunter was really worried about leaving his sister behind. Before we drove off, he texted Amir this long message. It never delivered. Amir had blocked us, all of us. None of us heard from him again after that. He vanished. And while Amir's never been violent before, he knows where we all live. So even now, I can't stop thinking about what might come next. This story goes back quite a while, but I'd say I still remember about 90% of it crystal clear. It happened in late April of 1996. I had just completed basic training and received my first assignment as a communications specialist at an air base in San Angelo, Texas. I was happy to be in Texas, coming from Mississippi. Part of the reason I joined up was to get as far from home as possible. At the time, I was 24 years old. The two people I was closest with on base were Sebas and Kay. We've since lost contact, but back then we were like family. One warm weekend in early April, Sebas suggested we take a quick trip to Austin, just to break out of the usual base routine. Kay and I agreed, feeling the same cabin fever. Kay volunteered to drive, so we loaded up her SUV and hit the highway that same afternoon. Roughly an hour into the ride, the highway was quiet when Sebas asked if we noticed a car that had pulled off from the shoulder just after we passed. I turned around and spotted a dark SUV, possibly a Tahoe, following us at a constant distance. I hadn't noticed it join the road, but on a highway, that didn't seem too odd. Then Kay switched lanes, and so did the SUV. She tried again, and it mirrored her move once more. That's when things started to feel off. Moments later, flashing lights came on from the SUV. We assumed it was an unmarked police vehicle pulling us over. Kay pulled off to the side, and the SUV stopped behind us. Right away, I noticed something strange. The man who stepped out wasn't dressed like any officer I'd ever seen. He wore black tactical clothing with no visible police identification. Just a patch on his sleeve with text I couldn't make out. And instead of approaching the driver's side, he stayed behind our vehicle. He was analyzing us. He seemed to be examining what we had packed, checking bumper stickers and eyeing the license plate. Eventually, Sebas noticed too and rolled his window down, asking the man if there was an issue. Without answering, the man abruptly walked to Kay's window and asked for her license and registration. Reluctantly, she handed them over. He returned to his vehicle and stayed there for a long time. We whispered about how strange this all was, unsure of what to do. After what felt like forever, he returned, and this time, 2 other men got out of the Tahoe with him. My pulse spiked. I focused on my breathing to stay calm. The original man came back to the window and asked Kay if her father had served in the military. Kay looked confused. Then he mentioned the military bumper sticker on her car. She laughed, saying that she was in the military, and gestured to Sebas and me, adding, "They are too." That's when everything shifted. The man didn't speak immediately, but his body language changed. He glanced back at the other 2 guys standing at the back of the SUV, then back at Kay. After a brief, heavy pause, he said he'd let her off with a warning and told her to drive slower. He returned her ID and walked away without another word. The 3 men got back in the Tahoe and peeled off, before Kay even started the engine. The three of us sat there, stunned. Sebas wouldn't stop talking about how those men weren't real cops, and how differently things might have gone if we hadn't been military. We carried on with the trip and actually had a great time in Austin. By the time we got back, we barely remembered the incident. But about a week later, everything came rushing back. Sebas and I were watching the local news when a story made me freeze. A man and a woman had been found dead in a ditch outside San Angelo. Robbed, murdered, and dumped, likely the night before. But what really hit me was that the police found a black Tahoe abandoned nearby. It had been reported stolen months ago in another state. Sebas and I rushed to tell Kay, and we all agreed to go to the police immediately. We shared every detail. Even now, I still think about how it could have been us. And maybe, just maybe, that military bumper sticker saved our lives. I've always been someone who valued my privacy, which is probably why it took me so long to share this story. Honestly, one of my biggest fears is that it might somehow get linked back to me. But lately, I felt like it would be a waste if I left this world without at least telling it. So here goes. This is way out of my comfort zone, but I think it needs to be said. Roughly 10 years ago, I was driving solo from West Paterson, New Jersey, heading to Fort Worth, Texas, to see my parents. It had been a long time since I'd visited, so the trip felt overdue. Somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, probably Arkansas or maybe near the Oklahoma border, my car started having issues. I ignored it for a bit, but eventually I had no choice but to pull over. The area was desolate, just forest, empty fields, and a seemingly endless stretch of road. I popped the hood and pretended I knew what I was doing. I didn't. I was mostly stalling, not wanting to admit I was stuck. My plan was to fiddle around and then call OA, though I didn't actually have a membership, just knew the bill would hurt. A few minutes later, I heard another vehicle roll up behind me. It was a plain white pickup truck, no visible front plate. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. I'd guess he was in his mid-30s, maybe a bit older, though rough around the edges in a way that made him look worn down. Curly hair, scraggly beard, the kind of guy who looked like he worked manual labor. Strangely enough, he kind of resembled me. Same height, same build, similar hair. He walked over, scanning my car as he approached. He didn't really ask if I needed help, just acted like I did. Before I could say anything, he was leaning over the engine like he knew exactly what to do. I explained what had happened and thanked him for stopping. He said he was a mechanic, and I believed him based on how quickly he jumped into action. After a couple of minutes, he stepped back and said something about needing a compression tester. Claimed the car wouldn't start without it. Then he gestured toward his truck and said a buddy of his might be able to bring one over. I had no clue what a compression tester even was, but he seemed sincere. He took out his phone to make the call, paused, then said his battery was dead. He asked to use mine. Without thinking, I handed it to him. The moment he grabbed it, he reached into his jacket with his other hand and pulled out a gun. I knew immediately what was happening. He told me to sit by the shoulder and not do anything stupid. His voice was steady. He'd done this before. I obeyed. He searched my pockets, took my wallet, my backpack, and made me unlock my phone for him. Then he got in his truck and drove off. Just like that, I'd been robbed. I'm calm now, but I was furious back then. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning. Someone else eventually came by and helped me get the car started. They even gave me directions so I could make it to my parents' house without a phone. Despite what had happened, the time I spent with my family was actually pretty great. The next few weeks were a mess. canceling cards, replacing IDs, updating accounts. It was exhausting, but I handled it. Life moved on. About 6 months later, things got worse. I got a letter from a bank I'd never heard of, thanking me for opening a new credit line. I thought it was spam until another one came from Best Buy saying I had over $1,000 in charges, all from a town in Tennessee. That's when I remembered. My Social Security card had been in my wallet. The guy didn't just rob me. He stole my identity. For the next month, my life was a nightmare. My credit got trashed. There were cards opened in my name, balances I didn't rack up, and reports full of red flags. I filed reports, froze my credit, and did everything the FTC advises. I even went to the police, but with no name or license plate, there was little they could do. Then I got a call from my health insurance. Someone had received treatment in Georgia using my name. It wasn't just a billing issue. There were medical records attached to my file that didn't belong to me. That could have put me in serious danger if I'd ever needed treatment. That's when I decided to go all in. I monitored my credit like a hawk, searched online forums, scoured social media, and set up alerts. One night, I checked Craigslist listings in areas connected to the fraud. That's when I found a post from Jackson, Tennessee, selling used power tools. Something about it felt familiar. Then it hit me. Those were the same items charged to that stolen Best Buy card. I contacted the seller pretending to be interested. I kept it simple, not wanting to scare him off. After a few messages, he agreed to meet in a public place. I got him to mention he'd be driving a red pickup. I called the Jackson police and told them everything. By some miracle, they agreed to check it out. When the guy saw patrol cars near the meetup, he panicked and sped away. He ended up crashing in a ditch. The police detained him, and he cracked fast, claimed he got the items from a friend and was just trying to sell them. That was enough to start connecting the dots. Turns out he wasn't alone. There were 3 of them, targeting isolated drivers across southern highways. I wasn't their only victim. All 3 were arrested and charged. I won't share more details, but I can say this. Justice was served.